Okay, thank you. I just want to thank you all for being here this morning. And before we get started, and I get started in any of my remarks, I would like to take this opportunity to have a moment of silence in recognition of Erica and other victims who have lost their lives to excessive speed. So if we could take a moment. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. You know, unfortunately, these issues impact everyone. We have a family friend, a dear family friend, who just this week was in a car accident, and she's in the hospital in a coma, and they don't expect her to survive. So it's just really tragic what's happening in our community. So before we get started, I'm going to ask Keith to play a video that he put together related to speeding. And what this video does is it really just sets the stage for issues that we're having. You know, I get calls from constituents on a regular basis about the problem of speeding in our community and our neighborhoods. And I knew, hearing from other councilors, that this isn't an issue that was just impacting the district that I serve, but it was impacting other districts as well. So I reached out to several councilors and asked if they would be interested in putting together a committee to address speeding and other related issues in our community. And are we going to just get started? And so obviously the first thing I do is I reach out to our Southwest Area Command, which is the district that I serve, and actually Commander Espinosa and Sergeant Middleton were right there ready to help address these issues. You know, meeting with the mayor also. I know he has some initiatives that he was already doing to address speeding. But us as councilors, because we hear it so much from our constituents in our districts, we wanted to work together to try to address this with an educational campaign. So I really want to thank some of the initial councilors that were on board with this, and obviously I'm only going to name a few because we can't meet more than 5 councilors. So it was just a real small working group. So I just really want to thank Councilor Benton, Councilor Sena, and Councilor Bassan, and also supportive of the project. Unfortunately, she wanted to desperately be part of the small working group, but we couldn't make quorum. But our council president, Councilor Borrego, who is here with us today and who also graciously contributed to this project. So with that, we'll go ahead and start showing the video. So are we ready? You ready?
Street racing is not just stupid, it's deadly. We see it every day, innocent lives destroyed by reckless speeding on our streets.
Over 120 miles an hour. That's how fast the driver was going when he hit and killed our Erica.
My beautiful, loving daughter.
It was senseless.
Why did our mom have to die?
I miss my mommy.
Our lives will never be the same, but we want people to know speeding has a name.
Mexico has an obvious love affair with fast cars, but we've seen too many horrific racing gone wrong scenes on the city streets. We've seen an increase now in these illegal street races involving special cars, high-end cars with these modifications, and daredevils behind the wheel.
Dozens of people were arrested, their cars impounded in the state, and to their homes. How about stories?
Yeah, well, and in the movies, you know, the guy wins the race, gets the girl, drives off into the sunset. But in real life, you get handcuffed and you get an impound notice. And sometimes people get hurt or even get killed.
towards the frontage road are a magnet for street racers. It's the latest hot spot at the intersection of Broadway and Ophelia that has neighbors looking for help.
Anywhere from about 100 to like 250 street racers at any given night. The roar in the CC and anyway. So yeah,
this is Keller Road right here, and around the same time yesterday, this was one day for cars to the next grill. The neighbor who spoke to us this afternoon said enough is enough. Just 2 weeks ago, research showed you this video of cars racing down the street near Uncertain Tower, and just Sunday night, street racers were at it again.
For about 2 hours, there was about 7 races on the street off 86th Tower.
On New Day morning, Albuquerque police are investigating a serious crash in northeast Albuquerque. It happened just after midnight. Police say at least 3 cars were drag racing on San Mateo near Candelaria when they collided and took out a power line. Several people were taken to a local hospital. A woman crossing the street killed in what police officers are calling the worst deadly crash they've ever seen, and it was possibly caused by street racing just outside Portland Air Force Base. Researcher Councilor Martinez is following the story tonight. She's live in Louisiana and gives us what has happened last night with what Alice.
Madeline, it happened around 8 last night here at the intersection of Louisiana and Rock. Police say the woman was crossing the intersection when she was hit and killed instantly.
The woman is dead after a crash. Police say it was possibly caused by street racing. It happened last night on Louisiana Distance. Police say one vehicle was in the left lane with 2 others racing behind it. And one of those vehicles finished bloody that an intersection collided with a woman walking across the street. At last, that 3 passengers are hospitalized in critical state.
and neighbors say it's street racing on this stretch of road. Really, even all that they're actually driving last night, said that he was in front of you.
The Albuquerque community is in mourning after this precious little girl, 10-year-old Carmen Esmeralda Rivera Narvaez, died this weekend in what police are calling a street racing incident.
76-year-old Priscilla was in intensive care. His 2-year-old doesn't know it yet, but his wife Priscilla didn't make it after this violent crash Saturday near Sportsman Kentucky. Vinny Lucero Jr. says his father has a broken clavicle, punctured lung, 11 broken wrists, and sternum cracked in half. Stefan Priscilla did not survive the impact with this truck.
Everybody was going about their day. My dad and his wife were really in church. They just left. And 30 seconds after they left, we're going to go to the accident.
Sadly, they never made it to church.
They took them a couple of times. And it took them a while to get them off, but they let them off.
As to the cause police are eyeing, they believe the truck that crashed into the couple may have been drag racing.
Always ends up with somebody getting hurt or killed. And this event was both. My dad got hurt, so that's it. Save the racing for the track, and not for the streets. The streets are for community, and not for racing.
So thank you. I mean, I think, just people know and recognize already that speeding on our public streets are an issue to begin with, and just the fact that how it impacts our communities and it devastates families when there's victims of speeding. So with that, I'm not sure So with that, I just wanted to say that, and this kind of sets the stage for the need and the desire for us to come together to really tackle this issue. And so, again, us as councilors wanted to do it through this educational campaign, but we know that the mayor of the city of Albuquerque is working hard and had been working hard already to address speeding. He has several initiatives that he's going to talk about in a minute. And, we just wanted to kind of complement the work that he's doing in terms of addressing this serious issue that we have in our community. So with that, I'd like to introduce the mayor of the city of Albuquerque, Mr. Tim Keller.
Well, good morning, everybody, and I want to thank a lot of folks this morning, but let me begin just by, acknowledging that, speeding and drag racing, pedestrian safety, these are literally the most complaints we receive from citizens all over our city. And I think it's also important that we acknowledge, we get these complaints because they're often, seen as like a quality of life issue. Somebody drove fast past me, or I hear the muffler noise. And look, those are real issues and should not happen. But this is about so much more than that. Why I think this program is so powerful, and why I want to thank the family for really being behind this, and city councilors for pushing this, is because what people don't understand, that the sort of, reckless driving actually can end life. And, thanks to this family for standing up and telling the story, but all the other families who have lost people because of reckless driving or because of road rage, we're doing this for them too, because people have to understand, that literally speeding has a name. And for us as a community, it is a problem that has gotten worse during the pandemic. So we know that unfortunately this is one area where we've been going in the wrong direction. And it's happening all over the country, but it's this combination of, perhaps law enforcement having to deal with pandemic, with less people on the streets, and, folks dealing with the stresses that they're dealing with, and somehow converting that into, if I drive fast down a road, 120 miles down a road, or because I'm angry about something, that somehow that's justified and those two things should go together. They should never go together. And this kind of reckless driving is a challenge for us on every street corner. This is the other issue that has become loud and clear in the city of Albuquerque. This is not an issue in a particular neighborhood. That's why I'm always glad to see so many city councilors here, because this happens all over the city. It has nothing to do with demographics or with area of town. It is a challenge all over the city of Albuquerque. And we can play a role by reminding people in many ways, like we do with DWI campaigns or even with seatbelt campaigns, that it's not about you. It's about the person that you might injure. Ironically, it's the same logic that we use with face masks. It's not about me wearing a face mask. It's about me trying to protect those around me. That is what this is all about. And that's why I'm so grateful for everyone involved for putting this together, especially the Chavez family, but of course our councilors and our police department. I want to mention just a few initiatives that we're working on to try and deal with this. One is we have a new commander in our Motors and Traffic Division, and he's taking a much more aggressive approach when it comes to actually targeting aggressive driving and drag racing, and actually having enforcement plans, again, all over the city, not just in one area. And so we've talked a little bit about that publicly, but if there's questions on that, Commander Veers can discuss that. We're also working on legislation to crack down on the associated challenges with chop shops. And this has to do with, essentially promoting the culture of racing on our streets. And so that legislation, unfortunately, did not pass this year, but we are going to keep pushing it. And I hope everyone can come together and say that these issues are connected. The nexus of stolen cars, of chop shops, and of street racing are all part of the same challenge, and so we have to address them from multiple areas. And the last thing is we want to educate people that speeding is not a victimless crime. There are families who have lost loved ones that we know all too well, including the Chavez family. And so with that, I just want to say thank you again to the Chavez family for doing this for the city of Albuquerque, and hopefully for saving lives in the future. Thank you. Councilor?
So as I mentioned, the mayor and APD have really been tackling this issue, and I'm really proud of the efforts. Chief Medina, he used to be the area commander for the Southwest area, and I knew reaching out to him that he would absolutely get on top of it as soon as possible. And I know they have some wonderful information in terms of the statistics and stuff that they have been able to do in order to deter speeding. So with that, Chief Medina.
Thank you, Councilor Pena, for letting me speak today. And, we're going to talk a little bit about my past 26 years in the city of Albuquerque and the issue that we've always had with speeding, drag racing, and during the pandemic, it's at a worse level than it's ever been. APD has been working hard to combat these issues. Just a few weeks ago, we partnered with the New Mexico State Police, and 150 citations were issued to individuals, and it started to set the stage for the future. And that's what our goal is start creating a culture and setting a stage of what's acceptable in the community. A few weeks ago, we ran the same type of operation. After one traffic stop and the individuals out drag racing, knowing that we had resources out and that we're going to be addressing this problem, everybody went home. And that's what we need to continue to do. We need to ensure that there is accountability for these individuals and that we devote resources to these problems. Acting Commander Veers will talk about some of the specifics, some of the numbers, but what I want to emphasize is this is the base of what One Albuquerque is. You look on this stage and we see community, we see city councilors, we see the mayor's office, we see everybody uniting to work on a community issue and a community problem. And that's the way we must move forward as a community to address these issues. The days of pointing fingers at individuals have to go away. We have to unite as a community. We have to be honest when there's issues with one of our processes or one of our systems. We have to work with those processes and those systems and all the stakeholders to ensure that we fix the root cause of what is allowing this type of behavior in the city of Albuquerque. Earlier, you heard the mayor talk about how we're looking at legislation that can make changes. Earlier, you saw a video that's going to go out to the community to talk about how we must educate the community together. The path forward to fix the community issues that we are seeing have to be based upon collaboration with the community, educating the community, and enforcement of the community, so we start creating that culture and setting those community expectations of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And it is not acceptable that human life be lost on our streets due to drag racing and speeding. Thank you for coming out today. For the family, we will work hard to ensure that no other families have to go through what you have had to endure in this process because of the careless acts of individuals who are out on our streets. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And as we put this small group, working group together, as I mentioned earlier, that it was made up of several councilors because we were hearing from our constituents on the need to address speeding in our respective districts. But as we put this working group together, it was made up of several people, the administration, the mayor, Isaac Padilla, Sarita Nair, APD Chief Medina, Commander Veers, Deputy Chief Donovan Rivera, Sarah Mask, Lieutenants Nick Wheeler, Adam Anaya, Matt Sandoval, and from the Southwest PRT, our Commander Espinosa, Tim Espinosa, and Sergeant Middleton, and from the Environmental Health Director, Mr. Ryan Mast. And we have here, I would like to introduce Commander Joseph Veers to talk a little bit about what APD has been doing.
Thank you, Councilor Pena. I'm Acting Commander Joseph Veers, the Traffic Division. First, I'd like to thank all of you for supporting this initiative. I extend my condolences from the Traffic Division for all of the family and friends here who have lost somebody to this tragic incident. Some of the things that we're doing, like the mayor had mentioned, we're taking a more aggressive approach to this because we just can't tolerate it anymore. This is something that needs to stop. So some of the things that we've done since I've been in the Traffic Division, we've ran numerous operations regarding speeding and drag racing. For about 2 months straight, for 5 days a week, we went out outside of normal duty hours, and the traffic officers specifically addressed some of the drag racing issues and issued hundreds of citations each night that they worked these events, equaling thousands of citations total. As Chief had mentioned, we had also worked with state police on a couple of operations to address some of the drag racing and speeding issues. Those have proven to be successful thus far, and we continue to plan some more of these events and operations to try to reduce those speeding and drag racing incidents. Another approach we're taking, other than just issuing citations, is trying to build community partnerships and deter some of that. So if we can't stop the racing on the streets, then we want to push that to a drag strip where they can do that legally, where it's safe to do so, and they can continue doing that not on our city streets where it's going to be endangering other people. We're also trying to build partnerships, obviously with City Council. There's a large group that's been put together to address these issues. APD can't do it alone. The officers out issuing citations isn't going to be the only mechanism to address this or stop it. So it's very important that we build those partnerships, extend that out to the community, extend out education to everybody to let them know how dangerous this is, that people's lives are affected, and it's not just going out there and having fun. So this is something that the traffic division takes very seriously. We are the ones who respond any time of day, any time of night for all the serious injury crashes, any of the fatal crashes. We conduct those investigations, and we're the ones that have to go out and let families and friends know that they had lost somebody to a senseless act of speeding or racing. We take it very seriously. It's very personal for us. So all the officers within the traffic division and within APD are very tired of dealing with this, and we want to approach it head on and do the best we can for all of you and the rest of the city to address these issues and stop the speeding and stop the racing. So again, thank you for being here. We appreciate your support. We take all of this information in through 311, through the mayor's office. If you call your substation, call the traffic substation. We encourage you guys to call, have people report it, call 242 cops. The more information we get of where it's happening, when it's happening, the more we can approach it and we can address it. So don't hesitate to call, give us that information so we can tackle it and get through this together. So again, I extend my condolences for the loss of your family and friends, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Commander. I really appreciate that. And before I introduce the councilors, the ones that really put their heads together and really helped to develop this initiative, I want to introduce, as APD just spoke, and enforcement is paramount, and they take their job seriously. And if somebody's endangering lives out there, they do what they need to do. But, community policing, awareness, educational campaigns, working with the community. You heard this several times as APD spoke. Community policing, for me, especially in not only my district, but other councilors' district, is paramount. So I'd like to introduce the Southwest Area Command and the sergeant from that area, because we have, as you all probably have heard of, is this PRTs, which are community policing models that are really working in our neighborhoods and our communities. So I'd like to introduce and maybe say a couple of words, and I'll bring them up together. Commander Espinosa and Sergeant Middleton.
Thank you, Counselor. Erica Chavez. Just let that resonate with everybody. One name of many who have unnecessarily lost their life to something that was completely preventable. And I think that regardless of your background, your beliefs, where you come from, one thing that we want to do as a community and as people is to leave this place a little bit better for our children when we're gone from here. So what does that mean? That means that we have to do our part together as a community. The police department is here to work with you all on a daily, weekly basis to make sure that we are doing our part and being held accountable by each and every one of you to make sure these type of tragedies don't happen again. I'm pretty sure there's plenty of people here that are wearing a t-shirt that wish they didn't have to wear a t-shirt, that wish they could just have another day in their life waiting for them to come by and visit or to call them on the phone. So we're asking that you guys do your part to help us end these type of things from happening, and we will do our part as police officers to listen to those calls and address the issues of concern to the best of our ability. Like Councilor Pena said, I'm working with the Southwest Area Command. One of the highlighted units that we have is our PRT team, and that's our goal as a department, is to work with you all, and we try to do that on a daily basis to make sure that we are preventing these type of things from happening again. I'd like to introduce Sergeant Middleton. He's our PRT sergeant, and he works a lot of day-to-day stuff to address issues of concern that affect us in our community.
Thank you, Commander, Councilors, Mayor, Chief, and to the family. Thank you all for being here. Anybody who knows me or the Southwest Area Commands knows that community policing is the most important thing, and it starts with the community. And by you showing up, it shows that Albuquerque does care and wants to see a difference. My team takes a different approach to policing. We're trying to get right now in the community. At the elementary levels, we are meeting with the students. We go to the high schools. We try to talk to these kids to let them know how dangerous speeding can be, crime, gun violence, the whole 9 yards. And we try to reach out to the community. And as long as I'm wearing this uniform, I'm going to work with my community the best I can. And I'm so sorry that I have to stand up here and address a family in mourning. And it needs to stop, and we're going to do anything we can to stop that. But I also believe that we need to educate the young children and let them know that, you know, they think it's cool because they watch it on TV, but they need to come and look at you guys in the eyes and see the sadness on your face. I can see it resonating here, and it breaks my heart. And if anybody driving this way could just look at you in the eye, maybe that can change one person, and we can stop this one at a time. So I don't want to take up too much of your time, but thank you for giving me the opportunity to address you. I'm sorry for your loss. And together as a community, we can work together to stop this. And we're going to start with the kids and let them know that the movies Fast and Furious, none of that is real, and people really do die. And we lose loved ones every day. The numbers there were just, it's so sad. It is so sad. There shouldn't be one person. So I'm going to do my best I can as long as I'm wearing this uniform and living in the city of Albuquerque. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So with that, like I said, you know, just hearing from lots of our constituents and you know, knowing that we really needed to address speeding in the district. I had actually just come on board my new policy analyst, Rachel Hernandez, and I was just telling her that this is really an issue that we need to figure out how we're going to be able to, you know, work with APD, work with the administration, but really figure out how we're going to be able to address this. We talked about some initiatives that we could get started, and we had some ideas, and, you know, we didn't really know exactly what to do. Shortly after, you know, I had heard in the news about what had happened to Erica. And then, you know, just there's so many sensitivities around that, you know, it's just how tragic that we had to have another life lost. And again, talking to Rachel and asking her, you know, what do we do? How do we do this? And lo and behold, Erica's sister, Rosa, and Maury reached out to me and said that they, you know, had lost their sister had lost her life due to excessive speed. And it was just so tragic. And without me even having to say anything, she wanted to loan the tragedy that your family experienced to bring awareness to others so that they would not have to be affected by this. In doing so, you know, we were kind of proceeded with caution just because, you know, it's a really difficult situation to have to relive the situation that you all had to relive. And there's other folks in the community, obviously, that this is impacted in terms of loss of life and their families. But for your family to step up and say that you really wanted to be a part of this initiative and to help to curtail this severe issue in our community, I just want to extend my gratitude and thanks to you, and really appreciate what you have done and that you've brought this to the table. But shortly after that, I met with the counselors. Some of the counselors, talked to them, and I had several counselors just raise their hand right away and say that this is something that they wanted to address in their community as well. So we formed a small working group back in October, and with that, one of the first persons that raised their hands was City Councilor Benton, and I'd like to introduce him right now.
Thank you. Thanks, Councilor Pena, for your leadership in getting our group together, and of course the support of the chief and the mayor in taking this on. It's a huge challenge. It's a challenge all over the country. It's not just Hollywood. You see advertisements on TV all the time for all sorts of things that are showing people doing whatever, exhibition driving, was a polite way maybe of saying it, but speeding and essentially showing off in their vehicle on public right-of-way. And has been stated, it's not acceptable. You may be proud of your car or whatever, but it's not about you. It's about just human decency to not have the kind of loss that these families like the Chavezes and others here today have experienced. It's about human decency and consideration for others. There are venues for showing off your wheels. There's venues for racing. There are drag strips. We support that. We do not support this kind of activity on a public street. We do need the help from the state in our discussions. We do encourage you and the public in general to also work with your state legislators on this, because state law is involved as well. And it has been stated by the chief and the commanders up here that do report it. Just because an individual instance doesn't receive immediate attention from APD doesn't mean you shouldn't report it. They need the data. They need to know where it's occurring and what time of day and night it's occurring. And that's how they build up their tactical plans to take it on. And we're so appreciative of them, and of course also the state police and the sheriff's office, who are also trying to tackle this issue. And we've all got to pull together, as the mayor said. This is truly a one community, one Albuquerque effort to say no, we're not going to stand for it. And we want to hear from you, and all the councilors and all our legislators need to hear from you in support of initiatives that will put a dent into it. And hopefully someday end it where people have that basic human consideration on the streets of our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Benton. And so next, the other counselor who raised her hand almost, I think, simultaneously. But, I just really appreciate her. She's a West Side counselor, and, we have our districts abut each other. So we're really working together to tag team when we're looking at these issues. So I appreciate her immensely, Councilor Sena.
Thank you, Councilor Pena. As was stated, this is not just a citywide issue. According to the National Safety Council, motor vehicles deaths have increased by 8% in 2020. And for more than 2 decades, speeding has been involved in approximately 1/3 of all motor vehicle fatalities, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Speeding and aggressive driving erodes not just the safety of fellow motorists or pedestrians or bicyclists, but it also erodes the safety of our infrastructure, of our community. Residents' houses, walls, streets are being destroyed by the recklessness. Lives are being lost. Mothers, fathers, parents, grandparents, daughters, and neighbors are being lost. I want to extend my condolences to Erica's family. Although I shared some statistics I want to remind everyone that even though we saw numbers on this board, it has a face to it. It has a family to it. It's not just that one person that's being impacted. It's all our families. It's all of our communities. Stop speeding before it stops you, before another loved one's life is lost. I want to thank our community for really stepping up, for Erica's family, that although they're going through this tragedy, that they are sharing their experience so that no other family has to experience this as well. I want to thank APD, our mayor, our environmental health, our traffic engineers, for all of us getting together with council to address this, as it is a citywide issue. And thank you to Councilor Pena for your leadership in getting us together to really address and tackle this serious issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Sena. Next, I want to introduce. She's actually in the northeast part of the city, which actually is also experiencing tremendous amounts of speeding. So she couldn't be here with us this afternoon. So we have a video that we will play now, and I'd like to introduce my homegirl from the northeast, Councilor Bassan.
Hey Albuquerque, this is Councilor Bassan, and I'm the City Councilor for District 4. I want to say that I'm really sorry to be missing this event today to announce that we have a meeting canceled. It has been my pleasure to be working with my colleagues on making sure that we raise awareness of the tragedy that can come out of speeding and do everything we can to minimize the problem here in Albuquerque. It's one of the #1 things that we hear about, I believe, as councilors, is speeding and drag racing, and what are we going to do about it? So I'm happy that we're doing something, and we're raising some awareness through this campaign so that maybe we can actually find a way to minimize some of the problem. Again, I'm really sorry to be missing this, and I say thank you to all of those involved in making this campaign a huge success and beginning to start implementing something. Whether it's small or big, I think that we have to make sure that we do everything we can to let Albuquerque know we as a city council are aware of the problem and we are doing what we can in order to fix it. Thank you so much, and I am so grateful to be a part of it.
Thank you, Councilor Bassan. And so next, obviously, we had to have a small working group, and councilors can't meet more than 5. It just rules that we have. So anyway, the other person that raised their hand was Councilor Borrego, and she's been supportive. Our president, she's actually been supportive of this since the inception of the idea, and she's absolutely contributed along with all the other councilors that we have that aren't here today. We couldn't do this, as we're talking about community. We couldn't do this unless we worked together. So I want to thank our council president, Cynthia Borrego. If you can come up, thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone, and I want to thank, first of all, our past council president, Clarissa Pena, for raising this issue. She has been everything related to cars in Albuquerque. And I want to thank our city councilors who have united and have put funding toward this effort. Not just united, but actually have put their money where their mouth is. And I want to thank our mayor, Mayor Keller, and his administration, Sarita Nair, who've been working on this issue. But especially I want to thank our Albuquerque Police Department, because they're the ones who are out there dealing with this issue day to day. And so as I was watching the video and I was thinking, what is speeding? Actually, speeding is breaking the law. And we have laws for a reason. We have laws to protect people. And when people are out there breaking the laws, and I hear it every day in my district, on Paseo del Norte, on Unsur, We think about Albuquerque on Tramway, on Montgomery, there's so many places that, have, people think they have wide open spaces because, Albuquerque and New Mexico is the land of the free, right? But sometimes there are laws for a reason. And those laws, as I mentioned, are to protect people. And I'm looking at this family in front of me, and I went down and met some of you, and I think, protection is for a reason in our society. And that protection was just tested in my own district recently, where I've had 2 fatalities in the last 2 years of people not following the law. And those fatalities, they affected me deeply. And when I met the families, and just this morning when I met the families of our young life that was lost, breaking the law has consequences. And those consequences are not the consequences that we want to deal with in the future. So I want to thank everyone that's been involved in this effort, because there's other city councilors that are not part of this effort right now, but they are part of it because they've also contributed funding to ensure that this continues and that we're able to work as a community to stop this. So with that, I just want to take a moment to reflect on these lives, on the lives of the people that we've lost. And there's many of them that have gone before the Chavez family. And I just want us all to kind of remember that those consequences are affecting families, and those families, we grieve with you, and we're trying to do something to stop this. So thank you all for being here with us this morning, and we look forward to some results and working with our police department.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Council President Borrego. So we'll be showing the press release in just a moment. The PSA in just a moment. But I just first want to say that I think I need to read some of the talking points that my analyst prepared for me, or I'm going to get in trouble. So, in response to the death of Southwest Mesa resident Erica Chavez, who was killed on September 14, 2020, by a motor vehicle operator driving in excessive speeds, myself and analyst Rachel Hernandez met with the family of Erica Chavez and would like to thank Erica's aunt, Rosa Rivera, Erica's mom, Julie, Erica's husband, Eric, who is out there, Erica's son, Eric and Isaiah, and Erica's granddaughter, Serenity, who miraculously survived the crash, Erica's aunts, Maury and Fina, for the meeting together. Today is the official launch of the Speeding Has a Name educational campaign that includes TV and radio spots to run the PSA, and will go live on Monday, May 3rd, and we will have 2 digital boards, one on I-40, one on I-25, and 10 arterial locations. We will also have additional coverage on Facebook and social media. We will also have yard signs and bumper stickers available at all APD area command centers for you, and you can call my office at 768-3100 if you need more. I'd also like to thank Sunny 505, Keith and Joni for putting together the presentation earlier and for putting together the PSA that will be aired shortly. I'd also like to thank our City Council staff. They're always there and always working hard for our constituents. Jeff Hertz, Julian Moya, Chris Melendez, Jesse Munoz, and of course, my analyst, Rachel Hernandez, who actually came up with the name Speeding Has a Name. So with that, I'd like to show the PSA before we have members of the family come up.
Street racing is not just stupid, it's deadly. We see it every day. Innocent lives destroyed by reckless speeding on our streets.
Over 120 miles an hour. That's how fast the driver was going when he hit and killed our Erica.
My beautiful, loving daughter.
It was senseless.
Why did our mom have to die?
I miss my mommy.
Our lives will never be the same, but we want people to know speeding has a name.
Thank you again, Keith. You did a great job with that. So with that, again, I'd like to thank the rest of Erica's family who came here today to support the launch of the campaign. Grandma Tess, Aunt Linda, Uncle Archie, Uncle Frank, Antoinette, Uncle Andrew, Aunt Evelyn, Grandpa Wayne, Grandma Margie, Cousins Denise, Selena, Greg, Amy, Julian, Samantha, Jamie, Josh, Donnie, Aunts Debbie, Josefina, Irma, Grandma Dora, and Grandpa Paulo, and Uncle Gary. And I'd like to thank Maury and Gilbert who weren't able to be here today as well. So with that, I'd like to ask Rosa to come up and say a few words.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here with us today. On September 12th, our life changed completely. The news said 1 dead at the scene, but it wasn't 1 dead at the scene. It was our Erica. She was the most amazing mother who left behind a son, 2 sons, a daughter and a husband, Saturday morning, waiting for her to come home with breakfast. As a community, we have a responsibility to make sure that we all make it home safely. On those roads, it's your grandmother, your best friend, your only daughter, your wife, your child. Our lives have forever changed, and it was important for us to come out here and share our story to ensure that another family doesn't go through what we are going through right now. Our life will never be the same. Erica will never come home. She will miss years of parties, birthdays for her boys and her little girl, graduations, weddings. Our life will never, ever be the same, and it's important for us to abide to the speed limit and for us to listen to those laws. They're there for a reason. They're there to protect you, and they're there to give somebody a fighting chance in these accidents. Erica didn't have a fighting chance. She was killed instantly with her 3-year-old daughter in the back seat, witnessing the whole scene in front of her. It's been very difficult for us, but our family has decided to put ourselves out here to make sure that you guys are aware of what's happening in this community. Speeding has consequences, and it kills and takes and breaks families. We are completely shattered at the loss of Erica. It has been very difficult for us. We already went through our first holiday season of an empty table for Thanksgiving, for Christmas. Mother's Day is coming around the corner, and her kids should have her here to celebrate this event, and we don't have her here. And we just ask you to please be cautious on the road. Please abide to the speed limit. Safety features in cars are there, but they won't work if you're going over the speed limit. There's no reason that anybody needs to be going down under at 120 miles an hour while there's mothers and children and other members of families driving down those roads. It's been very difficult for us, and it's even more difficult for the children. Us as adults have a hard time comprehending it. Now, how do you tell a 3-year-old little girl that her mom's never gonna come home? Her mom missed her first birthday, and we just ask you to please, please follow the speed limit. Give somebody a fighting chance, because you don't know who's on the other side of that car. Again, it wasn't 1 dead at the scene. It was a mother, an only child, an only daughter, a wife, and our life is completely shattered, and we have to pick up and try to figure out how to continue living without Erica. I thank you all for your time and for everybody that has came together to give Erica a voice. It's important for us to ensure that Erica is out there in memory, to ensure that your loved ones are safe and never have to go through what we went through. I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Rosa. Before I done, I just want to, there's a few more names to the list that are here today. Her dad, Rick Martinez, Aunt Valerie and cousin Julian, Brian Hubner, and Alicia. With that, I'd actually like to introduce Erica's son, Eric.
So I was waiting for my mom to come home and have the whole day with her, because she wasn't just my mom. She was like my best friend. I constantly told her everything. She always believed in me. I never felt unloved when she was around, and she just was so full of life and happiness still, and I was expecting that same happiness to come home, and she never did. It feels unfair because I know that she wouldn't have wanted to leave us. It feels like she was like taken away from us, and it wasn't even a choice. Seconds could have saved my mom's life. If you would have just slowed down just a little bit that day, if you would have thought to, maybe I shouldn't speed, maybe I should just go a few minutes late, you wouldn't have caused the pain that has happened to my family. I see almost everybody upset once in a while, and it hurts to see them upset, and then it makes me upset, and then I just know that I just don't want anyone else to go through what I'm going through right now. And I'm so thankful that she is getting the voice that she deserves, getting the recognition, and that this needs to stop, because I don't know how many times I've already almost got hit after this accident with my family members in the car. Like, it's getting ridiculous, and I just want it to stop.
Well, thank you. I just want to thank you all again for being here today. I really appreciate it. You know, it's a short PSA. It costs a lot of money, and I really want to thank again the counselors for contributing to this effort to get it on the radio, on TV, Facebook ads. I just really appreciate it. But you know, I would ask all the TV stations that are here today that if they can air this PSA as much as possible, we would really appreciate that as well. With that, we have yard signs, and as I mentioned earlier, they're going to be at each of the area commands, so you can reach out to your area command. We actually have them in our each of our council offices. We have them, so you can call your respective counselor to try to get some yard signs and bumper stickers. You could reach out to the mayor's office and get some bumper stickers. You can call 311. They will forward you to our offices. Actually, last night we had a committee of the whole meeting. Rachel had received the yard signs. She was so excited that her and her husband, Luis Hernandez, and Rosa were out there. So my district is already flooded with Speeding Has a Name campaign. So thank you, Rachel and Rosa and Luis. So with that, this concludes our presentation. So again, thank you to the family members, and thank you, counselors, and thank you to the mayor and APD for all the hard work you do. We really appreciate you. It takes a team to get this done, and we're all working together. So thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Marlon Magdalena, Instructional Coordinator for Jemez Historic Site. We're a site located about an hour and a half northwest of Albuquerque, New Mexico. We're a site protecting the Pueblo of Gisitwa and the San Jose de los Jemez Mission Church. So today I would like to tell you a little bit about the people that lived here, the Jemez people. I am one of their descendants. I live in the Pueblo of Jemez, and my ancestors lived at this site, at Jemez Historic Site. And our people have a long history here in the Southwest. Before we arrived here in the Jemez Mountains, which is why the Jemez Mountains are called that, is because the Jemez people lived in these mountains. We lived further to the north, to the northwest, in the Four Corners region. We lived in those places. We built villages, we hunted, we gathered. We also planted different types of crops in those regions. We also interacted with other groups of people. We weren't the only people living out there. There was the Tewa people, Tiwa people, Hopi people, Zuni people, and Keres speaking peoples. And so there's people all around us, and we're trying to live in all these different places, sometimes together, and sometimes there was conflict between different groups of people. For the most part, though, we were able to trade, we were able to work with one another to live in these places. But as we're living out there, we're constantly moving around. We're migrating, mostly in the southern direction. For the Jemez people, at least, we're moving in the southeastern direction. And eventually we arrive into the Jemez Mountains. And on these long migrations, sometimes there's other groups that are going ahead of us to check things out, sort of reconnaissance missions, making sure things are okay ahead of us, ahead of the main group of Jemez people. And so we're also helping other groups along the way, or sometimes we're having conflicts with other groups of people as well. And we're moving around, so we're coming to the south, into the Jemez Mountains. And sometimes these reconnaissance groups that went ahead of the main group of Jemez people, they kept on going, sometimes all the way down to the south, into what we know as Mexico, or even down into Central America. They're checking things out with those groups of people. because there's many groups of people living down there as well. They're either learning from them, they're trading with them, seeing new things down there. But eventually some of those groups, they come back. They're able to share with us, the main group of famous people, what they saw, what they learned. And so you see some of that influence sometimes in the forms of macaw feathers, shells, copper. We still use a lot of these things today, and it's because of these other groups that went around to trade or to just to visit other groups of people. And sometimes those communities from the south came up this way as well. Vice versa. People are moving around. They're always trying to see new things. They're trying to trade new things, trying to learn new ideas and new ways of doing things. And us Hames people were the same. We were trying to learn different things by moving around, visiting, talking to other groups of people. And this continues. And then when the Spanish arrived, this new group of people had their own way of doing things. And sometimes the trails that they followed were trails that Hamas people, other indigenous groups would have used. And so one of those trails eventually became known as the El Camino Real. This trail, this road, would have been a very old trail that people have been using for possibly thousands of years, that came up from the south into the southwest here into New Mexico, Arizona areas. So the Spanish used this trail and continued to. They traveled along this trail. They brought things up from Mexico. They brought people, they brought supplies, different types of items from Mexico to here, to the southwest. And from here in the southwest, sometimes they took things from here back down into Mexico. And sometimes they took people. And they took people sometimes as prisoners or as laborers or basically as slaves. And we have many stories of our people being taken down into Mexico to work in the silver mines. One of those people was taken, or they were either taken after a battle, usually as punishment. There's one specific battle that took place in July of 1694. It's one of the last battles of the Reconquest. And eventually we lost this battle in one of our villages here in the mountains. And so as punishment, the leader of our village at the time was taken down to Mexico to work in the silver mines. And he never came back. And this was fairly common in many of the pueblos. And a lot of these people were taken to Mexico to work off their punishment. But sometimes they came back, but sometimes they never did. So there's quite possibly some descendants of Hamas people or even other Pueblo communities that are still down in Mexico today. And so this road, this El Camino Real, has been used for a long time. Even today, people still drive alongside it, I-25. And we continue to use a lot of these roads, a lot of these trails, a lot of